Once upon a time, there was a little girl. She lived in a modest home out in the country with her father. Her mother died when she was just a baby, and her father did the best he could to raise her with everything that she needed. He was a good father. He was a loving father. And he taught her that no matter what happens in life, to stay true to yourself and to follow your heart. They were a happy little family in their little home in the country. After a while, her father met someone and fell in love. He got married, and to her benefit, he had 2 daughters that were just a little bit older than her. And she had this great family. And for a while, they were so happy. She had a mom and a dad and sisters to play with, and life was great. And then tragedy struck. Her father died. The girl was devastated. How at such a young age she could have lost her mother and her father. But she took solace in knowing that she had a mom and she had 2 sisters who loved her and would look after her. And everything was good for a while. But then something happened. Her mother became very angry and very resentful, and she started taking out her anger on this little girl. She was very rude and very mean and very abusive to this girl. And her older sisters became very mean and abusive to her as well. Let's think about this for a minute. You have a single mom with a mortgage, all of the debts that her husband left her. She's lost her husband, and she has 3 teenage girls. Now, those of us who were teenage girls or who have raised teenage girls, it's not an easy job. So this woman was taking out all of her anger and her stress and her frustration out on this girl. But everything that was inside of her said, there's something better out there for me. And she didn't stop listening to that voice inside of her. And she continued to follow her heart. And no matter what happened in her life, she was good and she was right. And every morning she woke up, looked out the bedroom window, out across the fields of grass, up to this big mansion up on the hill. And she would stand there in her window and just dream of what it must be like to live in this mansion on the hill and to have people who loved and respected her. That was her dream, and she knew somehow that dream would happen for her. And then one day, call it synchronicity or call it magic, she found herself at a party in this mansion. She sat for hours talking to this young boy that she met there. He was good looking, and he was everything she imagined a boy to be. This castle, this mansion on the hill was everything she imagined it to be. And after hours of communicating this with this young man, he came to realize that this is the girl for him. He fell in love with her, not because of her physical beauty, but because of who she was on the inside. He fell in love with her heart. And after a while, they got married. She moved into the mansion on the hill. She had everything she had ever dreamed of. And as the story goes, they lived happily ever after. Now, most of you will probably recognize this story as the story of who?
Cinderella.
Cinderella, that is true. Now, the story of Cinderella has got some flack over the years as being a story of just a girl who was rescued by a prince. And I'm one of those that bought into that too. I was not going to let my kids watch the princess stories because it was about girls being rescued by princesses. I've come to understand that this story is so much more than that. This is the story of someone who overcame tremendous adversity. She followed her dream, and she made it happen. Now, hundreds of years ago, girls didn't have to get rescued by boys because it's the only way they could get out of their adversity, which of course is not true now. But what's interesting is that this story has been told 1,000 different ways, about 1,000 different people, over hundreds, if not thousands of years. Because this is the story of anyone who has grown up in an abusive home or in an abusive community and found a way out. It is the story of everyone who has overcome tremendous odds and tremendous adversity and followed their dream. It is the story of everyone who has risen above their circumstances and who has made their dream come true. It's not just the story about a girl who meets a boy and she just happens to get lucky one day. She knew what she wanted. She knew that there was a better life out there for her. And she knew somehow that she could get out of her circumstances. There was a truth inside of her and a passion in her heart that pushed her past her circumstances. And she looked up there at that mansion and she said, that's what I want and I will find a way. It's about the football player who rises above all odds because he's too short and he's too little and he's too skinny, but he becomes the hero. That's what this story is all about. It is the story of my story, and I suspect that somewhere in each one of you, it is your story as well. It's the story of every single one of us, because every single one of us have the ability to face our challenges uncircumscribed, without limitation, and to rise above them. The Cinderella story is the story that is evidence that dreams do come true.